Welcome to the Seatrade Maritime Podcast. I'd like to come back to Adam to talk about the shipbuilding market. Adam, there's been sort of no let-up in new building orders over the last 12 months. So how has that sort of compared to previous, and which sectors have we seen most activity?
Yeah, and you say new building contracting in 2024 was exceptional. It's probably going to go down as the second highest ever year of contracting, with around 125 million gross tonnage ordered over the course of 12 months. That's only surpassed by 2007, where we saw around 170 million GT of vessels contracted. So a very strong year in 2024. It's higher than any other year we've seen in the last decade by around 25%, and is more than double the average contracting that we saw over the last 10 years. So it has been strong, and a lot of that strength has been generated by the container ship sector once more. 2024 is likely to be potentially the highest contracting total that we have seen ever, beating 2021. And we've also seen strong support from other sectors. The tanker sector, we've seen around 60 million deadweight of tankers contracted in 2024. And that's amazing when you think in 2022, we only saw 10 million deadweight of tankers being ordered. So we've gone from 10 million in 22 up to 60 in 2024. We've also seen record ordering for LPG. 75% of all of those LPG orders have been focused in on the VLAC and the VLGC sectors. So I think there's been a lot of interest in the potential for new trades associated with ammonia that's helped drive that sector and that ordering. And LNG, although it hasn't been a record year for LNG, we've certainly seen another stream of orders come to fruition over the course of last year. And I mean, to me, it's very similar to that period in 2003 to 2007, where each year we seem to see record orders for one sector or another. And we seem to be in that sort of period at the minute over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, where consistently one sector is sort of topping out at all-time record contracting levels.
Some pretty staggering numbers in there, actually, and I noticed you used the word record quite a few times. I kind of hope that the fallout of this is not the same as what happened after that period in 2003 to 2007. Looking into 2025, are we set to see the same kind of level of activity on the ordering front?
No, I mean, to be fair, we have obviously been surprised by the amount of new orders that were placed in 2024. A lot of these vessels we had forecast to be contracted, but potentially over the course of the next 2 or 3 years. And I think what we've seen is some front loading of some of those orders. And as a consequence, we do expect to see order totals come off during the course of 2025 and 2026 for that matter. It's not that we're going to say that there's going to be no ordering this year in 2025. But as you rightly pointed out, I've mentioned the word record, and we have seen record ordering pretty much across the piece, apart from dry bulk. So we don't think that this can continue. We do need to see some more orders for, say, small container ships. We do think we're coming to the sort of back end of the ordering binge for the large container ships. And when it comes to dry bulk, if you look at the age profile of the fleet, there will need to be a almost wholesale replacement of the dry bulk fleet, potentially for the vessels that are over now sort of 19, 20 years old over the course of the next 5 years. We don't think that this ordering spike will come sort of later this decade, when new building prices cool off a bit and lead times shorten.
Okay, so you are expecting to see things cool off a bit this year. One of the things I think that's been marked is the sort of over the last 2-3 years, I guess, is the real dominance we're now seeing of the Chinese yards. Where does this leave Japan and Korea?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, China in 2024 managed to secure around 2/3 of all orders when measured in gross tonnage. And that sort of pushed up the Chinese order book by 37 million gross ton to an impressive 151 million gross ton Chinese yards are currently sitting on. If you compare that to Korea, the Korean order book has fallen marginally over the course of the last 12 months, and the Japanese order book has fallen by around 4 million GT. So China is certainly winning the current battle to secure orders. Where that leaves Korea and Japan going forward is quite a difficult question to answer, in that the Chinese yards have managed to move very quickly and efficiently up the value-added curve when it comes to shipbuilding, and also, for the majority of the yards, the quality curve as well. The Korean yards and the Korean government are now investing quite heavily in new technology and productivity gains to try and keep ahead of the Chinese yards in the high-value sectors, predominantly sort of the container sectors and the gas sector. It probably has to do a little bit more to try and wrestle back some of those container orders that have been lost to China over the course of the last few years. And I think that the hope for the Japanese yards is potentially that they concentrate and specialize on niche sizes, niche sectors, and potentially some of the new sectors that we see coming to the fore, so things like the CO2 carriers in the fullness of time, where they can sort of deploy some of their high-end technology on construction of some more of these more specialized niche new sectors than potentially the Chinese yards.
Okay, but overall, it does look like the Chinese have become much more dominant, and the other factor we're seeing from China is the yard expansion and reactivation combined. I think you did mention that the productivity increases, and that's opened up more sort of early delivery slots. Is there a risk of overcapacity down the line?
Yeah, I mean, we have been here before, and you're right. We've seen a lot of mothballed yards come back to life over the course of the last 3 years, and perhaps more worryingly, from a long-term perspective, we've seen now some new yards starting to be constructed, and greenfield new yards starting to be constructed in China. But that's not to say we've also seen some yards sort of come back, being reactivated or reorientated towards merchant shipbuilding in Korea. And this is something that we've said all along over the course of the last 15 years, that once the shipbuilding market started tightening, once shipbuilding became profitable, some of those mothballed yards that were sitting would be reactivated and re-employed within the merchant shipbuilding sector. As you rightly point out, that does become a risk as we move forward. Obviously, it's great at the minute if you're an owner wanting to go and place an order. It means that you've got more variety, you've got more options to place orders, and there is a chance of getting your vessel quicker and potentially at a slightly lower price than if you were just relying on the shipyard capacity that was in existence, say 2-3 years ago. But what obviously happens is that, as we've said, contracting won't carry on at the same levels that we're currently witnessing across the next 5 years. We will see eventually a drop in contracting, and we then are in a situation where we've got more shipyards, more capacity now than we did have 3 years ago. So fundamentally, what happens if there's lower contracting is that yards start reducing prices, and we see a lot more competitive pricing by the shipyards in order to attract new orders, in order for those yards to remain fundamentally in existence. So what it will do is that as new building prices come down, it can lead to new building prices falling quicker and further than if we'd have seen that sort of capacity be maintained at the levels that we were sort of witnessing 3-4 years ago. So good for the short term if you're an owner, bad in the longer term for new building prices, which again may be a good thing if you're a ship owner looking to order in 3 or 4 years' time.
Okay. I think the quote of "we've been here before" could sort of kind of sum up shipping markets as a whole somehow.
It's amazing how many people have short memories, though, Marcus.
Indeed. I think with that, I'd like to wrap up this episode. If you've enjoyed this episode of the Seatrade Maritime Podcast, make sure to subscribe on the app of your choice, and we look forward to joining you on the next episode.